So after the Kalyani Chalukyas, there were some other dynasties. They were just Western Gangas who were ruling from their capital as Kolar. Western Gangas keeping their capital as Kolar, and uh, Chamundaraya was an Indian military commander. Chamundaraya was an Indian military commander. He was an architect, he was a poet and a minister. He served in the court of the Western Ganga dynasty of Talakkad. He served in the Western Ganga dynasty of Talakkad in modern Karnataka, India. Then Chamundaraya, he commissioned the construction of the monolithic statue of Bahubali, the Gomteshwara at Shravana అప్పుడు చదివాము కదా చాముండరాయ అతను. సో హీ వాస్ దిస్ చాముండరాయ హీ వాస్ present in the court of Western Ganga dynasty of Talakkad in Karnataka. Chamundaraya, who was also a military commander, architect, poet and minister, he commissioned the construction of the monolithic statue of Bahubali, the Gomteshwara at Shravana. Then Eastern Gangas, they were the rulers of Kalinga. Anantavarman, he started the construction of the Lingaraju temple in Bhuvaneshwar and Jagannath temple in Puri. Anantavarman of Eastern Gangas, he started the construction of the Lingaraju temple in Bhubaneswar and the Jagannath temple at Puri. Then after Anantavarman, it was Narasimha. He constructed the Sun temple Konark. So both the world famous Puri and Sun temple Konark temples were built by Eastern Ganga rulers of Kalinga. Anantavarman built Puri Jagannath and Lingaraju temple, and Narasimha in the 13th century AD he built the Sun temple Konark, and in 12th century AD Puri Jagannath temple was built. Now the Hoysalas, we read about Hoysalas. The Hoysalas capital was Belur Halebeedu అంటాం కదా, Hoysalas of Halebeedu. బేలూరు was their capital. బేలూరు హలేబీడు అంటాం కదా, బేలూరు హలేబీడు అనేది ఇట్స్ వెరీ ఫేమస్. సో హొయసాలాస్ క్యాపిటల్ వాజ్ బేలూరు, విచ్ వాజ్ దెన్ షిఫ్టెడ్ టు హలేబీడు. Then this period was a very important era for the development of the art architecture and religion in the southern countries. It was very important era for the development of art, architecture and the religion also in the southern countries. The Hoysala Empire, it contributed to the growth of both the Kannada and the Sanskrit literature. The Hoysala Empire, they contributed to both the growth of Kannada and the Sanskrit literature, both of them. The earliest known king of Hoysala's empire is Nripakama II, okay, who lived around 1026 to 1047 AD. He was probably a feudatory of the Western Ganga dynasty, and he is known to have indulged in futile wars against the Cholas. So the first king was Nripa, Nripa, Nripakama II. So however, another early Hoysala ruler, Vinayaditya, he was also a feudatory of Chalukyas of Kalyani. Okay, Vinayaditya was a feudatory of the Kalyani of Chalukyas. Vinayaditya was having a family ties with Western Chalukyan king Someshwara I. Someshwara king of Western Chalukyas ఉన్నట్టే Kalyani Chalukyas king of Someshwara I ఉన్నాడు కదా. So with him he had the Vinayaditya had the family ties. Okay, who Hoysala king, so Vinayaditya had married a matrimonial alliance with the Western Chalukyan kings Someshwara. Then after that, Vinayaditya's son Yerayanaga, Yerayanaga, Vinayaditya's son Yerayanaga ఉన్నాడు కదా, he tried to establish himself as an independent monarch, but he was unsuccessful. Yerayanaga, he tried to establish himself as an independent monarch, but he was unsuccessful, who was the son of Vinayaditya. Then Yerayanaga was succeeded by Veeraballala I. He was succeeded by Veeraballala I, who was also an unimportant ruler. Veeraballala I. Okay, their capital was at Beluru and their alternative capital was Dwarasamudra. Dwarasamudra కి ఇంకో పేరు వచ్చేసి హలేబీడు. The first capital of Hoysalas was Belur. Beluru. The second capital was Dwarasamudra, which was Halebeedu. The home of Hoysalas, it lays in the hilly tracts of the northwest of the Gangavadi in Mysore. Hilly tracts of northwest of Mysore, northwest of Gangavadi of in Mysore. So Hoysalas, they became very prominent during the prolonged struggle between the later Chalukyas and Cholas. కళ్యాణి చాళుక్యాస్కి చోళాస్కి ఆల్వేస్ దే హ్యాడ్ ఫైట్స్ కదా. సో కళ్యాణి చాళుక్యాస్కి చోళాస్కి ప్రొలాంగ్ ఫైట్స్ జరుగుతూ ఉన్నప్పుడు దీస్ హొయసాలాస్ దే బికేమ్ మోర్ ప్రామినెంట్. Then Veeraballala I, who was an unimportant ruler. Then the first notable great Hoysala king was Vishnuvardhana. Vishnuvardhana, who was also known as Bittiga. The first prominent king was Vishnuvardhana, who was also known as Bittiga. Then Ballala was succeeded by his younger brother Bittiga, better known as Vishnuvardhana. He was the real maker of the Hoysala kingdom. Then he was a Jaina, but later he embraced Vaishnavism. He was initially a Jaina, but later he embraced Vaishnavism. Then he annexed Bittiga or Vishnuvardhana. He annexed the Chola province of Gangavadi. Adi first initially Chola province of Gangavadi. Gangavadi was a Chola province. ఇందాక అన్నాం కదా, దే బిలాంగ్డ్ టు హిల్లీ ట్రాక్స్ ఆఫ్ నార్త్ వెస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ది గంగావాడి ఇన్ మైసూర్ అని చెప్పి. సో ఇట్ వాస్ అ చోళా ప్రావిన్స్ ఇనిషియలీ. బిట్టిగా హీ అనెక్స్ ది చోళా ప్రావిన్స్ ఆఫ్ గంగావాడి అండ్ ఆల్సో పార్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ నలంబవాడి. Gangavadi and Nalambawadi. Then having secured the southern frontiers against the Cholas, Vishnuvardhana turned against the Chalukya Vikramaditya. He turned against the Kalyani Chalukyas of Vikramaditya. కళ్యాణి చాళుక్యస్ ఉన్నాయి కదా, విక్రమాదిత్యతో అదే ఇందాక అన్నాం కదా, చోళాసు వెస్ట్ లేటర్ చాళుక్యాస్కి మధ్య ఫైట్స్ జరిగేటప్పుడు హొయసాలాస్ వచ్చారని. సో హూ ఎవర్ కింగ్స్ ఆర్ మెన్షన్డ్ ఇన్ ద చోళాస్, ఇన్ ద హొయసాలాస్, దే మైట్ ఎయిదర్ బీ ద చోళా రూలర్స్ ఆర్ ది కళ్యాణి చాళుక్యాస్. సో సదర్న్ ఫ్రాంటియర్ ఏమో చోళాస్తో స్ట్రాంగ్ చేసుకున్నాడు. దెన్ హీ టర్న్డ్ అగెయిన్స్ట్ ది ద Chalukyan ruler Vikramaditya. But Vikramaditya drove the Hoysala ruler Bittiga. He turned the ruler back to his territory. First Cholas succeed కానీ Vikramaditya he couldn't succeed. So Bittiga was sent back to his own territory. But during the reign of Chalukya Someshwara III, Vishnuvardhana not only defied the authority of the Chalukyas, but he tried to extend his dominions at their expense. So not only but during the reign of Chalukya Someshwara III, Vishnuvardhana not only he went against the authority of the Chalukyas, but he extended his empire also at their expense. So Vishnuvardhana, he assumed the titles of తలకడగొండ అండ్ వీరగంగ. ఎందుకంటే గంగవాడి ప్రావిన్స్ని అనెక్స్ చేశాడు కాబట్టి హీ వాస్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ వీరగంగ. అండ్ తలకడగొండ అనే టైటిల్స్ ఉన్నాయి ఫర్ విష్ణువర్ధన ఆర్ బిట్టిగా. Then he was one who consolidated the Hoysala empire. Then he established his capital at Dwarasamudra, which is the modern Halebeedu in Karnataka. So he was the one, Bittiga or Vishnuvardhana was the one who established his capital at Dwarasamudra or Halebeedu in Karnataka. Then Vishnuvardhana, he built Neerti Narayana, Neerti అంటే నితిన్ అండ్ కీర్తి, Neerti Narayana temple at Talakkad and Chennakesava temple at Beluru. Vishnuvardhana, he built Neerti Narayana temple at Talakkad. ఇందాక తలకడ గొండ అన్నాం కదా, అదే ప్లేస్, ఆ ప్లేస్ పైన ఆయనకు ఆ టైటిల్ వచ్చింది తలకడ. మేబీ హీ హ్యాస్ captured that place also, so he is called as Talakada Gonda and Veeraganga. So and Neerti Narayana temple is presented Talakada, and Chennakesava temple is presented Beluru. It was constructed by Bittiga. He was originally a Jaina, and Jaina religion enjoyed high favors under his minister Gangaraja's protection. బిట్టిగాస్ మినిస్టర్ గంగరాజా ఉన్నాడు, ఆయన ప్రొటెక్షన్లో జైనిజం అనేది దే ఎంజాయ్డ్ హై ఫేవర్స్ ఫ్రమ్ ద కింగ్. దెన్ హీ క్యారీడ్ అవుట్ న్యూమరస్ కాంక్వెస్ట్ అండ్ హీ డిఫీటెడ్ ద మైటీ కింగ్స్ ఆఫ్ ది చోలాస్, చేరాస్ అండ్ పాండియన్ కింగ్స్. సో ముగ్గురిని కింద ఉన్న ట్రివియాస్ని మొత్తం అందరినీ కాంక్వెస్ట్ చేశాడంటే బిట్టిగా. ఇట్ ఈస్ సెడ్ దట్ అండర్ ద ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్స్ ఆఫ్ రామానుజాచారి, ఇందాక చెప్పాం కదా చోళాస్, లేటర్ చోళాస్ ఆయన హెరాస్ చేశారని. హీ వెంట్ టు ద హొయ్సాల రామానుజాచార్య హీ వెంట్ టు హొయ్సాలాస్ కింగ్డమ్ అని. సో under the influence of Ramanujacharya Vishnuvardhana, he was converted to Hinduism and he became a Vaishnavite. So first he was a Jaina, then Jains received a great amount of patronage from him under his minister Gangaraja. His minister పేరు కూడా గంగరాజ. దెన్ న్యూమరస్ కాంక్వెస్ట్లు చేశాడు అండర్ ద ఇన్ఫ్లుయెన్స్ ఆఫ్ రామానుజాచార్య విష్ణువర్ధన or Bittiga. He converted into Hinduism and he became a Vaishnavite. So this is evident by a number of Vishnu temples built by him in his reign. Evident from a number of Vishnu temples. ఇందాక చూసినావు కూడా చూడు, ఒకటేమో విష్ణు టెంపుల్ నీర్తి నారాయణ టెంపుల్ అట్ తలకాడ వచ్చి ఇట్ ఈస్ విష్ణు టెంపుల్. అండ్ చెన్నకేశవ అంటే చెన్నకేశవ అంటే కూడా విష్ణువు పేరే. కేశవ అంటే విష్ణువు అనే కదా. చెన్నకేశవ టెంపుల్ అట్ బేలూరు ఈజ్ ఆల్సో విష్ణు టెంపుల్. సో రామానుజాచార్య changed him. So then he died in 1150. In the 12th century he died, and his son Narasimha I ascended the throne. Narasimha I, he killed the western Chalukyan ruler Talaipa III. కళ్యాణి చాళుక్యాస్లో రూలర్ ఉన్నాడు కదా తలైపాత్రి, హీ కింగ్ వెస్టర్న్ చాళుక్య రూలర్స్. నరసింహ వన్ సన్ ఆఫ్ బిట్టిగా ఆర్ విష్ణువర్ధన, హీ కిల్డ్ ద వెస్టర్న్ చాళుక్యస్ రూలర్ తలైపాత్రి, అండ్ హీ వాజ్ సక్సీడెడ్ బై నరసింహ వన్ వాజ్ సక్సీడెడ్ బై వీరబల్లాల టూ. ఆయన ఫాదర్ పేరే పెట్టుకున్నాడు. సో హీ వాజ్ సక్సీడెడ్ బై వీరబల్లాల టూ. ఓకే, దెన్ వీరబల్లాల టూ దీని నుంచి ఆల్ ఇన్ వన్. సో విష్ణువర్ధన వాజ్ సక్సీడెడ్ బై హిస్ సన్ విజయ నరసింహ వన్, who in turn was succeeded by his son Ballala II. In the first 20 years of Ballala II's rule, he had to fight hard against the feudatories of the Chalukyan Empire. ఎవరి ఎంపైర్? వెస్టర్న్ చాళుక్యస్ ఉన్నారు కదా, ఆ చాళుక్యన్ ఎంపైర్ ఫ్యూడేటరీస్తో హీ హ్యాడ్ ఇన్ దట్ ఫస్ట్ 20 years of his rule, he had to fight hard against the feudatories of the Western Chalukyan Empire. Then he was succeeded by his son Narasimha again. ఒకటి రెండే పేర్లమ్మ, బిట్టిగా ఆర్ విష్ణువర్ధన. ఓకే, బల్లాల అండ్ బిట్టిగా వేర్ బ్రదర్స్. ఓకే, బిట్టిగా సన్ నేమ్ వచ్చి వీర నరసింహ వన్, అండ్ నరసింహ సన్ పేరు వచ్చి వాళ్ళ నాన్న వాళ్ళ బ్రదర్ పేరు పెట్టుకున్నాడు, దట్ ఈస్ బల్లాల టూ, వీర బల్లాల టూ. Okay, again Ballala II's son's name was again his father's name Narasimha I. Ballala I, Bittiga, Narasimha I, Veera Ballala II, again Narasimha II. Ante. Now Veera Ballala II, he put the Chalukyas of Kalyani to an end by defeating the Someshwara IV ni defeat chesi Veera Ballala II, he put the Western Chalukyas to an end. Okay, see, every ruler had defeated either any one of the Western Chalukya rulers and the Chola rulers. So the last one was Veera Ballala II. He had put an end to the Kalyani Chalukyas by defeating the Someshwara IV. After this defeat, Someshwara IV had shifted his capital to Banavasi, and the Kalyani passed to the hands of the Yadavas of Devagiri. After they got defeated by Veera Ballala II, Someshwara IV, he shifted his capital to Banavasi, and their capital Kalyani had shifted to Yadavas of Devagiri. Then with Cholas, he had family relationships. Veera Ballala II had family relationships with Cholas. So Cholas తో ఏం ప్రాబ్లం లేదు, ఓన్లీ చాళుక్యస్తో వచ్చింది. The successors of Veera Ballala II were mostly unimportant rulers. The last great king of then after Veeraballala to Narasimha to had come, he had to intervene to save the Cholas. He has to intervene to save the Cholas and intervene to save Cholas from the Pandyas. Okay, he restored Rajaraja III to the throne, and Narasimha's son and successor Someshwara established himself in the south and built capital at the Kannanur near Srirangam. Narasimha's son. ఇప్పుడు నరసింహ టూ వచ్చి బల్లాల టూ సన్ వీరబల్లాల టూ సన్ వాస్ నరసింహ టూ. హీ రీస్టోర్డ్ ది రాజరాజ త్రీ టు ద థ్రోన్. పాండ్యాస్ నుంచి కాపాడి రాజరాజ త్రీని చోళాస్ని హీ రీస్టోర్డ్ ఆన్ ది థ్రోన్. Then Narasimha II's son and his successor Someshwara, he established himself in the south and he built a capital at Kannanur near శ్రీరంగం. శ్రీరంగం ఉంది కదా ఇప్పటికి కూడా, దాని దగ్గర కన్ననూర్ అనే ఊరు ఉంది, అక్కడ క్యాపిటల్ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేశాడు సోమేశ్వర. దెన్ బల్లాల 3 అండ్ నరసింహ 3. నరసింహ 2 తర్వాత ఇట్ వాస్ నరసింహ 3. హిస్ నేమ్ వాజ్ ఆల్సో బల్లాల 3. Then Narasimha III, he successfully held the Hoysala frontiers in the north against the Yadavas అని చెప్పాం కదా, Yadavas of Devagiri. So against the Yadavas of Devagiri aggressions, నార్త్ని కాపాడుకుంటూ వచ్చాడు బల్లాల 3 ఆర్ నరసింహ 3. నరసింహ 3 ఫస్ట్. ఓకే నరసింహ 3 ఫస్ట్. So Narasimha III was the son of Narasimha II. Narasimha III worshipped Pashwanatha, who was the 23rd Jaina Tirthankara, and his spiritual advisor was Maganandi Siddhanta. Maganandi Siddhanta was his spiritual advisor. He was the Mahanandi Siddhanta was Digambara monk of Balatkara Gana. He was a Digambara monk of Balatkara Gana. Gana. So Narasimha III, his spiritual advisor was Maganandi Siddhanta. He was a Digambara monk of Balaktara Gana. Then he was succeeded by his notable son Veeraballala III. So Ballala III, the son of Narasimha III, while waging successful aggressive campaigns against the Yadavas నార్త్ నుంచి వీళ్ళకి అగ్రెషన్స్ ఇస్తున్నారు, నార్త్ నుంచి అటాక్ చేస్తున్నారు డ్యూరింగ్ ద టైమ్ ఆఫ్ నరసింహ 3, ఫాదర్ ఆఫ్ బల్లాల 3. Then Ballala 3, he could wage successive aggressive campaigns against the Yadavas, and he held to fight hard against the powerful rebellions of the feudatories of their empire and the Pandyas in the south. నార్త్లో యాదవాస్ని స్టాప్ చేశాడు, వాళ్ళ డైనాసిటీలో ఉన్న ఫ్యూడేటరీస్ని స్టాప్ చేశాడు, అండ్ ద ఫ్యూడేటరీస్ అండ్ ద పాండ్యాస్ ఇన్ ద సౌత్ వాళ్ళని స్టాప్ చేశాడు ఎఫెక్టివ్గా వీరబల్లాల 3. Okay, then Veeraballala III was the last great ruler of the Hoysala Empire. In 14th century, okay, the commanders of Sultan Alauddin Khilji, they had the commanders of Sultan Alauddin Khilji, they had invaded the Deccan, devastating most of the countries. Okay, by 1318 Devagiri was occupied by Sultan of Delhi, and by 1336 almost all the Hindu kingdoms of the south except the Hoysalas, they were annexed to the Delhi Sultanate. See, the commanders of Sultan Alauddin Khilji, they had invaded the Deccan, they have devastating most of the country's Hindu kingdoms. By 1318 the Yadavas of Devanagiri, they were occupied by the Delhi Sultans occupy చేసేసుకున్నారు. ఓకే, యాదవాస్ని. ఇట్ వాస్ అ వెరీ షార్ట్ రూల్. అండ్ బై ఆ తర్వాత ఇంకొక 18 yearsలో బై 1386 almost all the Hindu kingdoms by 1336, in 18 yearsలో by 1336 almost all the Hindu kingdoms of the south except the Hoysala empire, they were annexed to the Delhi Sultanate. Then a Muslim Madurai Sultanate was also formed in those years. మదురైలో ఇంకో సల్తనేట్, ఢిల్లీ సల్తనేట్ కాకుండా ముస్లిం మదురై సల్తనేట్ ఆల్సో వాస్ ఫార్మ్డ్ ఇన్ దోస్ ఇయర్స్. సో వీరబల్లాల 3, he campaigned against the Muslims. Veeraballa III campaigned against the Muslims. Then he made Tiruvannamalai as his new capital, and he founded another capital on the banks of river Tungabhadra at Hosapattana, where his able commanders of Harihara and Bukkaraya, popularly known as Hakka Bukka, founded the Vijayanagara Empire. ఓకే. ఓకే. హొయసాలాస్‌కి ఫ్యూడేటరీసా వీళ్ళు? వీరబల్లాల III అందుకని ముస్లిం మదురై సల్తనేట్‌కి అగెయిన్స్ట్‌గా ఏం చేశాడు, క్యాంపెయిన్స్ చేశాడు. దెన్ తిరువన్నామలైని అతని న్యూ క్యాపిటల్‌గా చేసుకున్నాడు. వెరీ గుడ్. హూ డిడ్ ఆల్ దిస్? బల్లాల III. He made Tiruvannamalai, Ballala III made Tiruvannamalai his new capital, and he founded another new capital at on the banks of river Tungabhadra. So new capital పేరేంటి? Hosapattana. It was his new capital on the banks of the river Tungabhadra, where his able commanders Harihara and Bukkaraya, where his able commanders Harihara and Bukkaraya founded Hosapattana on the Tungabhadra river paina. They founded the Vijayanagara Empire in 1336. Then Veeraballala was killed in one of the battles against the Delhi Sultan in 1343. Ballala III was defeated by Malik Kafur but lost to Madurai Sultan. మాలిక్ కఫూర్ ఉన్నాడు కదా, అతను బల్లాల IIIని డిఫీట్ చేశాడు ఆఫ్ హొయసాల కింగ్డమ్. అగైన్ హీ లాస్ట్ టు బల్లాల III was lost to the Madurai Sultans. Then Veera Ballala III was killed in one of the battles of Delhi Sultans. Then he was succeeded by Harihara Raya, one who founded the Sangama dynasty of Vijayanagara Empire. He was succeeded by the Harihara Raya, one Harihara and Bukkaraya కదా, who found the Sangama dynasty of the Vijayanagara Empire. The art and architecture of the Hoysalas. The most typical and well-known examples are the temples of Chennakesava. ఇందాక చదివాం కదా, the temples of Chennakesava at Halebeedu. The temple of ఇక్కడ ద మోస్ట్ ఇక్కడ మన బుక్లో చెప్పేది ఏమంటే ద టెంపుల్స్ ఆఫ్ కేశవ అట్ సోమ్నాథ్పూర్ అట్ ద టెంపుల్ ఆఫ్ చెన్నకేశవ అట్ బేలూరు అండ్ Hoysaleshwara temple at Halebeedu. The Kesava temples at Somnathpur, Chenna Kesava temple at Beluru, and Hoysaleshwara temple at Halebeedu. Okay, Chennakesava temple at Beluru, Hoysaleshwara temple at Halebeedu, and Kesava temple at Somnathpur. So what was the capital of the Hoysalas? Dwarasamudram, that is Halebeedu in Karnataka region. Who was the first king of Hoysalas? Nripakama. Then Hoysala kingdom started to flourish under rule of Bittaga or Vishnuvardhana. Bittaga converted to Vaishnavism on the whose influence Ramanujacharya, which king declared Hoysala as an independent state? Veeraballa, the son of Bittiga, Veeraballa II, who had the title of Chola Rajya Pratishthapanacharya. Who had the title of Chola Raja Pratishthapanacharya Narasimha II. ఎందుకంటే he had helped the Cholas to sustain against the Pandyan attacks. రాజరాజ చోళ IIIని మళ్ళీ అక్కడ పెట్టగలిగాడు. సో చోళ రాజ్య ప్రతిష్టాపనాచార్య వచ్చి నరసింహ II, the Hoysaleshwara king Narasimha II. Which Hoysaleshwara king was defeated by Malik Kafur? Ballala III in 1310. Who annexed Hoysala state to Vijayanagara Empire? Harihara Raya and Bukkaraya in 1343 annexed the Hoysaleshwara state to Vijayanagara Empire. Madhvacharya preached his Dvaita philosophy during the era of Hoysalas. Madhvacharya preached his Dvaita philosophy during the era of Hoysalas. What was the book written by Nagachandra, who had the title of Abhinava Pampa? Nagacharya title వచ్చి Nagacharya అనే poet, he had the title of Abhinava Pampa. What was the book written by Nagacharya? Jaina Ramayana. Nagacharya wrote Jaina Ramayana. Who wrote the first Kannada novel called as Leelavati? It was the first Kannada novel. Leelavati was written by Nemi Chandra. Nemichandra, Nagachandra. Nagachandra was Abhinav Pampa and he wrote Jaina Ramayana. Nemichandra wrote the first Kannada novel Leelavati. The temple built by Bittadeva in Beluru was Chennakesava Swami temple. So Chennakesava Swami temple is in Beluru. Hoysaleshwara Swami temple is in Halebeedu. Kesava temple at Somnath.